you can do to go out and get things like bottles, which you can use to store medicine and fairies, or you can collect a lot of treasure maps, which sometimes lead to pieces of heart, so you can just increase your life meter outright. But it's very possible for people who are experienced with the control scheme to really blow through the game without ever having to do any of that side stuff whatsoever. In the event that you do get stuck in a puzzle, in a dungeon, or need a little extra help, the Wind Waker actually is the best use of GameCube to Game Boy Advance connectivity that we've seen thus far. Basically, you'll get an item in the game called the Tingle Tuner. Tingle being the wannabe fairy from Ocarina of Time. He plays a fairly major role here as well. Basically what the Tingle Tuner does is you use it in the game, and Link will pull out a little Game Boy Advance with an antenna on it and look down, and it'll download the Tingle program to your GBA. You don't need any cart in the GBA to use it. And basically what this will do is it'll serve as a map. You can look at a dungeon map at any time. You can look at a sea chart at any time, which is helpful because you don't need to identify quadrants to actually look at your quadrant or the surrounding quadrants to find islands and other things that are important to your quest. Tingle is perhaps best described in the game as kind of a helper item, almost like it was designed for parents to use while their young children are playing the game. Basically, Tingle will be on screen on the GBA whenever he's enabled, and whenever you walk over an item of importance or kind of approach a puzzle, Tingle will give clues, or sometimes he'll just give outright the solution to the puzzle almost immediately. Tingle can also be used to replenish your health. You can drop bombs, you can float over objects for a set period of time, and do a few other little things, and those things will cost you a few rupees here and there, but you shouldn't really ever actually need to rely on any of those items, as the game rarely gets difficult. Also, Tingle's abilities are disabled during boss fights, so there's no way to get an unfair advantage that way, which is a nice touch because the boss fights are really kind of the meat of the game, and being able to refill your life at any point, depending on how much money you had, would actually completely spoil every single fight in the game. With or without Tingle, experienced players should be able to blow through the game at around the 15 to 20 hour mark. Now keep in mind that that's skipping a lot of the extra stuff that you can do in the game. And there is a lot of it. There are a lot of people who will ask you for 20 golden feathers, and you bring them those feathers once you've finally collected all 20 of them, and they'll give you a piece of heart. There's a lot of items like that in the game. There's extra bottles you could go get. There's just a ton of extra little side quests that you can go on for completeness' sake. Basically, a lot of these quests will lead to treasure maps. You won't really know where the map actually is pointing at. It'll just show you a piece of land and then an X out in the ocean where something is buried. So you'll have to take a look at your sea chart, figure out what island that is, where exactly it is, and then actually sail out there, and with your grappling hook you can actually use it kind of like a gotcha egg machine UFO catcher to submerge down into the sea and grab these treasure chests up. A lot of them are money, a lot of them are pieces of heart. None of it is really relevant to finishing the game because you can most definitely finish it without that extra help, but it's nice to have a lot of extra things to do. Players that really want to go after every single treasure map in the game and get every single item you can find can expect that 15 to 20 hour number to increase exponentially. Much has been said about the graphical style in The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. People were pretty skeptical of it right off the bat. The game has a very distinct cartoon-like style. It uses cell shading to kind of convey that cartoony style. And that skepticism is really unfounded because the game looks absolutely incredible. Just the way characters can express themselves, there's a lot of really fantastic facial animation in the game that the style makes possible. Because the characters have slightly larger eyes, you can actually see your character kind of looking around the room. And he may be looking at objects, grapple targets or things that you wouldn't readily see, and that can be a big help at times. But also, the characters in the storyline are very good at conveying that facial animation, and that lends a lot of emotional weight to the game that you might not get just by reading the game's text-based story. There are a lot of other great graphical effects in the game. There's very little draw distance, so when you're out on the open sea, you can really kind of see these islands off in the distance and figure out, well, I guess I need to head in that direction because that's the island I'm heading to. and a lot of things like that. The game runs at a nice, smooth frame rate, has a lot of really great lighting effects. There's a lot of really just terrific, nice touches. Since the game has a lot of wind in it, you'll see grass blowing back and forth, trees kind of moving. When you get out of water, you'll be dripping wet for a few seconds. Just a lot of really fantastic graphical touches that really add a whole lot of polish to the look. Beyond that, though, I mean, the character models look great. They're not made up of the most polygons in the world or anything, but just the way that they're shaded, the way the cartoon look is used is incredibly effective, and the game looks absolutely stunning. Sound-wise, the game does a fantastic job as well. A lot of the songs in the game are remixes of previous Zelda songs. You'll hear kind of some Ocarina of Time music thrown in here and there. You'll also get some songs that aren't really strictly remixes or remakes of existing tracks, but maybe there'll be like a passage here, a passage there that is really reminiscent of past Zelda music. Like the music that plays when you're out in the ocean actually is kind of reminiscent of the overworld music from the original Zelda, though not note for note. It's just thematically similar, and that's a really nice touch. It actually goes a long way to really kind of making the game feel like a cohesive part of the rest of the series. The rest of the sound is also quite good. The game has Dolby Pro Logic 2 support, which is used pretty well in the game to convey some surround effects here and there. The sounds of combat are great. You'll run into a lot of really cool enemies who all have their own little sounds here and there, and it all sounds really quite good. The only thing that may grate on your nerves after a while is, Link has a limited set of yelps and screams that he'll unleash, as he's striking with the sword or getting hit, and those do get a little repetitive. But I mean, that's a really minor thing that, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't make that much of a big difference. The game does sound fantastic. It looks fantastic. From a presentation standpoint, it's practically unmatched. In the end, The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker is just about everything you would want from a Zelda sequel. It sticks pretty close to the blueprint laid out by the Ocarina of Time, but when you consider that game basically kind of reinvented the genre at the time, and that a lot of third-person action-adventure games have really kind of been following in Ocarina's footsteps ever since, it's not really that big of a surprise that what The Wind Waker is a refinement of a lot of the things that were introduced back in Ocarina. Anyone with a GameCube should obviously own this game. It's definitely the definition of a must-own game on the GameCube, and it's good to see Zelda back in its pure form.